Krishna is now getting into karma vibhaga. He is assigning now. We saw guna vibhaga. We saw the four classifications based on the three gunas. Now we will see the classification of karma, the occupation itself. And while talking about the occupation, which is the duty that needs to be performed, the karma that needs to be carried out, when we use the word karma here in this context, we need to remind ourselves that karma is duty. Karma is occupation, vocation, the work that we do. Right? So, the duty of a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Sudra has two components: outer contribution and inner satisfaction. Each of them, everyone in a society, while performing, needs to look at essentially, how do I contribute? So, this is the beauty of Varna system. The Varna system is all about looking at a society as a whole and looking at everyone as a part of this whole, and how do we do our work contributing for the larger good. So outer contribution is a significant part of the duty, and equally significant is the inner satisfaction, because if there is no inner satisfaction, there is no outer contribution. So both have to go hand in hand. So essentially, if we look at Varna system, therefore, it recognizes the diversity in human natures. Human nature is diverse. We cannot wish it away. Human nature is recognizing the human nature, the diversity in human nature. It scientifically prescribes duties and occupations matching people's nature, bringing that right fitment between people's nature and the work, the duties that they perform. You can look at the Varna system as the 4 M's to simplify it. The 4 M's being ministerial, managerial, mercantile, mechanical. It's a little oversimplifying, but for us to understand the logic, the scientific way of looking at this division, this classification, and repeatedly we kept discussing this. Based on this classification, there is no gradation whatsoever. When we look at duties, when we look at occupations, vocation, every vocation in a society is significant. There is no gradation whatsoever. The gradation only comes when we look at the classification based on gunas. The one who has sattva dominant obviously is the one who has to be looked upon, because that's the goal. Cultivating sattva is the goal for all. So climbing the ladder of sattva, the door to climbing the ladder is open to one and all. So gradation comes only when we look at based on guna, but when we look at based on karma, there is no gradation whatsoever. So the Varnas, therefore, recognizing the diversity, we are essentially empowered to maximize our potential by doing the kind of work that will make us comfortable doing it. And in that process, only when we have that inner comfort, we can actually start addressing at how do I cultivate sattva. Until then, if I am constantly struggling with this inner conflict, there is no scope for me to learn and grow spiritually. So, first step, fundamental step is to bring that comfort materially. Once we are comfortable at that level, then it becomes easy for us to start looking at the challenges of overcoming rajas and tamas and cultivating sattva. So essentially, Varna system is all about dividing, classifying the nature of occupations and giving everyone an opportunity to do the nature of work aligned to their own individual characteristics, and also give them an opportunity to spiritually grow as well. Materially contribute, spiritually evolve. That's the overriding objective. So therefore, Krishna takes up occupation, karma, and divides it into 4. So what are the intrinsic qualities of the work of a Brahmana? Now we will look at assignment now. We looked at identity, we looked at classification, we look at assignment. The nature of the duties, the occupations, the vocations. What are the intrinsic qualities of work for a Brahmana? Shamo dhamas tapas shaucham kshantir arjavamevacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. We can all chant this together. Shamo dhamas tapas shaucham kshantir arjavamevacha jnanam brahma karma svabhavajam. From here on, Krishna is going to present various job descriptions to us. All of us at work, at some point in time, we all either define right job descriptions or we kind of try to comply with job descriptions. Now, what we're going to see is 4 universal job descriptions that Krishna is going to come up with. It's a brilliant analysis of the various duties, the various occasions, and classifying them fundamentally into 4. So we will see 4. The first is a job description of a Brahmana. What is a job description of a Brahmana? So any job description has a title, of course. So the job description of a thinker, a teacher, a guide. A job description has to have some required qualifications. It should also have some duties and responsibilities. This primarily, there are 3 important aspects of any job description. What's the title of the job? What are the qualifications required to do the job? And what are the duties and responsibilities of the job? So we are looking at the job description of a Brahmana, the thinker, the guide, the teacher. What are the required qualifications? Now, this is where we need to focus on the qualifications. And we all know, whenever we recruit someone, obviously the first thing we see, obviously we don't recruit an engineer to do the work of a doctor. Straight away that's filtered out. We do not recruit an accountant to do programming. So the qualification becomes so very important. Shamaha, damaha, tapaha, shaucham, kshantihi, arjavam, jnanam, vijnanam, astikyam. Now, this also helps. This job description is actually for us to analyze and see, can I apply for this job? We need to all ask. We need to ask, can I apply for this job of a Brahmana? Now, first and foremost, while we all of us aspire to do the job of a Brahmana, we need to see, do we have the qualifications? And Krishna gives the qualifications in a very, very crystal clear manner. Shamaha, shamaha, damaha. Shamaha, mental control, mental mastery, mind mastery. One should be able to manage the dualities of life comfortably. Damaha, senses mastery, sense restraints, controlling one's sense organs. Together with Shama and Dhamma, one brings equanimity of the mind, and therefore one can be very disciplined. Tapaha, austerities. Shaucham, purity of mind, which means the 6 defects in the mind are completely cleansed. Kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryas. Selfish desires, delusion, jealousy, egotism, all these anger, all of this are impurities in the mind. So, a pure mind is devoid of all these impurities. Shaucham, kshantihi, tolerance, acceptance. Tam sthiti kshasva bharata, Krishna says. You have to manage the dualities. Pain and pleasure, heat and cold keeps coming. The life is subject to the law of impermanence. Can one manage this impermanence comfortably? Kshantihi, arjavam, tweed, alignment of thought, word and deed. Bringing perfect alignment to the thought that I have, the word that I speak, the word that comes as an expression of the thought, and the action that becomes an expression of the word. Total alignment, integrity. Jnanam, Vijnanam, knowledge and assimilated knowledge. Both are important. Knowledge is what I accumulate. Accumulating knowledge is very important. But then the accumulated knowledge has to be assimilated. Like I eat food, but if I cannot digest the food, then the process of eating the food is of no use. I have to eat food to nourish the body. I have to eat food and digest the food. I have to acquire knowledge. I have to assimilate the knowledge. Jnanam, Vijnanam. Astikyam, foundation for the job of a Brahmana. Astikyam. Astikyam is faith in the Shastras, faith in Bhagavad, faith in the Vedas. Because without this faith, it is faith in what cannot be perceived by the senses. Faith in things that the eye cannot see, the ear cannot hear, the tongue cannot taste. And the reward of the faith is seeing that which cannot be seen with the physical eyes, hearing that which cannot be heard by the physical ears, tasting that which cannot be tasted by the physical tongue. So Astikyam is so very fundamental. So these are the qualifications of a Brahmana. Now, what are the duties and responsibilities? Performance of Vaidika samskaras, Vaidika rituals for themselves and for the others. Love of knowledge means profession of teaching, cultivating knowledge and sharing it with others. Guidance and advice, to be a guide, to be a source of support in terms of wisdom to those who administer, leading people with wisdom. So these are the duties and responsibilities. So now the job description of a Brahmana is very clear. Now, once this job description is advertised, who should apply to this job? This is the question. Once a job description is published, not everybody can apply to this job. Who should apply? Who will be the right fit is the immediate question. The right fit is SRT, Guna Brahmana. Only a Guna Brahmana can take up the work, the duties of a Brahmana. If a Guna Kshatriya takes this work, what is going to happen? It's not going, he will be completely, it's like a fish trying to climb a tree. Instead of a fish can swim very well. If a fish starts to aspire to climb a tree, it's going to fail. So therefore, there has to be a right fit between the job description and who can perform. A Guna Brahmana is the one who will be the right fit for this job description. So, when a Guna Brahmana takes up this work, then material contribution comes effortlessly, spiritual evolution also comes materially. If otherwise, anybody who takes up this will struggle even at the level of contributing materially. Forget about spiritual evolution. Then comes the second job description. What are the intrinsic qualities of work for a Kshatriya? Shauryam tejo dhritidhaksham yuddhecha api apalayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma swabhavajam. You can chant this together. Shauryam tejo dhritidhaksham yuddhecha api apalayanam danam ishvara Kshatram karma swabhavajam. The intrinsic qualities of work of a Kshatriya. So now let's look at the job description of a Kshatriya. The job description of a Kshatriya, the title, a leader and an administrator. That's the title of the job. What are the required qualifications? Chauryam, Tejaha, Dritihi, Dakshyam, Yuddhecha api apalayanam. Dhanam Ishvara Bhavaha. Very interesting characteristics that that are required for a Kshatriya job. Shauryam, valor, courage, appetite to take risks. A Brahmana has a lesser appetite to take risks. A Kshatriya has a greater appetite because risking one's life. This is sacrificing one's, ready to sacrifice oneself. That is the kind of risk a Kshatriya has the appetite for. Shauryam, Tejaha, power, strength. One needs the requisite strength to be a Kshatriya, to do the job of a Kshatriya. Dhritihi, determination. Dhriti obviously is common to all, but here this dhriti also is not only to steadfastness to do something, steadfastness to get things done as well. This is very unique to a Kshatriya, because a Kshatriya has to get things done by the larger group, being an administrator, being a leader. Dakshyam, resourcefulness, managing resources effectively. If the resourcefulness doesn't work, he can even deploy forcefulness. Sama, Dana, Veda, Dhanda. This is applicable to a Kshatriya. He can use all four in order for the larger good. Yuddhecha api apalayanam. Facing Yuddha here, not just the war. Okay, if you are talking about a king war, if you are talking about an organizational leader or a societal leader, it is any struggle is a war. Facing struggle, not fleeing away from struggle. Yuddhecha api apalayanam. Not fleeing, ready to face any kind of struggle. Dhanam, very important for a Kshatriya. Giving, because a Kshatriya, a king or a leader is not about just amassing wealth. That is not the work. Amassing wealth, somebody else has to do. Somebody else's role. Job descriptions are very clear here. There are no overlaps here. The role is not amassing, the role is giving. Somebody else will amass the wealth. The Kshatriya has to, with all doing justice, has to distribute wealth. The collected taxes have to be properly deployed for the welfare of the society. So therefore giving becomes fundamental to the job description of a Kshatriya. Ishvara Bhava, very interesting swabhava here. Ishvara Bhava. In good old days, a king is considered as a god. Raja is Bhagavan's Pratinidhi. He is Ishvara Pratinidhi. So therefore, he needs to have Ishvara Bhava as a role. Understanding that he is a representative of Ishvara, he needs to carry out controlling people, managing people, leading people as the instrument of Ishvara. So Ishvara Bhava is ability to control, but knowing that that ability is a spark of Krishna's Vibhuti. So that Ishvara Bhava therefore is also a very important qualification for a Kshatriya. Duties and responsibilities: rule, govern, lead, administer, control, protect. It could be a state, society, group, organization, whatever it is. So we know now the job description. Who all want to apply? Who will be the right fit to apply? Answer is very simple. RST. What is RST? Tamas. Kshatriya, Guna Kshatriya, where the Rajas is dominant, but this dominant Rajas has to be backed by Sattva. That is key. If it is not backed by Sattva, there is no Dhanam. There is no Ishvara Bhava. That is the reason why a Kshatriya has to act and behave as one who is simply a representative of Bhagavan. So, Sattva is very much important. RST. So, when there is this right fit, one is a Guna Kshatriya, one can then comfortably do the role of the job of a Kshatriya. Being a Karma Kshatriya becomes also easy. Then we go to the next classification. Intrinsic qualities of work for a Vaishya and Shudra. Krishigo Raksha Vanijyam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam Paricharyatmakam Karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. Can we chant together? So Krishna then takes up the intrinsic qualities of work for the next two categories, Vaishya and Shudra. So now let's look at the job description of the third category, the job description of a Vaishya. What is the title? Wealth creator. A Vaishya is a wealth creator. Required qualifications. Krishna puts it very simple. Now, while it looks simple, each of them has multidimensional meanings. Krishi, ploughing. Goraksha, cow protection. Vanijya, ability to trade. Now, Krishi, ploughing. So, which means any type of endeavor, economic endeavor will go into the category of, into characteristic of Krishi. Any economic endeavor. No, farming, ploughing is one economic endeavor. But when we look at all variety of activities that can come in the realm of economics, all of that is captured by that one word, Krishi. Goraksha, cow protection. The ancient times and even today, the cow is a symbol and at the very center of creating abundance and prosperity in society. And therefore, the qualification of the job of a Vaishya, one of the important qualification is Go Samriddhi. Go Samriddhi is not only protecting, taking care of course. When we say Go Samriddhi, all kinds of prosperity is contained within Go Samriddhi. Vrindavan, the land of Raja, is known for abundance, and we can relate to the abundance by looking at the amount of ghee that is churned, the amount of butter, the amount of milk that flows and overflows in Vraja. So the sign of abundance is captured by this qualification of Goraksha, cow protection. Vanijya, ability to trade, ability to do business, create essentially profit making, creating wealth of all kinds. These are the required qualifications. What are the duties and responsibilities? Agriculture, dairy farming, trade, industry, investments, anything that we can go on and on. Anything to do with any economic endeavor that kind of creates wealth comes under the job description of a Vaishya. Who will fit here? Who will want to apply? Possibly if I ask this question, all of us will raise our hands. Because in one way or the other, all of us are engaged in economic endeavors. So, most of us, knowingly or unknowingly, have taken up the job of a Vaishya, irrespective of our jati, irrespective of our birth. Most of us, in one way or the other, are engaged in doing the job of a Vaishya. So, who will be the fit? What could be the answer? What is the combination of the gunas? R-T-S. R-T-S. The difference between a Vaishya and a Kshatriya is, in the case of a Vaishya, it is R-S-T. Sattva is backing the dominant Rajas in the case of a Kshatriya. In the case of a Vaishya, Tamas is backing the dominant Rajas. Only when that is there can be accumulation. Because Sattva will prevent accumulation. When Sattva dominates, one will not accumulate, one will only keep giving. But we also need people in the society to accumulate so that others can give. Look at the division of work here. One accumulates, other gives. Giving. So therefore, if we see the beauty here, there is giving and taking individually, there is giving and taking at the level of the whole as well. When we look at the cycle of giving and taking, we see giving and taking in the macrocosm We see giving and taking, the cycle, the microcosm at all levels. Right from the cell of a body to the Brahmanda, we can see the cycle of giving and receiving all the while. Now, it can be collective giving, collective taking. It can be individual giving, individual taking. So this is the beauty. So one in a group, when one is unable to give, somebody else pitches in and fills the gap for the sake of the larger group. We need to understand this. For the group as for the whole to experience order, just like in a team, one can only bowl well, cannot bat. But somebody else compensates for the lack of batting of this bowler with his batting. So we need the combination. We need an excellent bowler. We also need the excellent batsman. Both together, the teaming works. So a Vaishya here, Rajas dominant, backed by Tamas, backed by Sattva. But we need to understand, there is Sattva also. Because if there is no Sattva, then it becomes contribution will never come. Working, then it becomes only hoarding and beyond. And also, later we will see the ability to cultivate Sattva requires the window of little Sattva to be opened. Only when the window of little Sattva opens, then one starts to use that little window to start growing Sattva. So there is Sattva in everybody. Just like how there is Tamas in everybody. It's just that what is dominating and lack of awareness of our own mix, our own swabhava. So this is the job description. 3. Job description. So number 4, the title being service provider. The job description of a Shudra. Krishna gives it very simple. 1 qualification. Paricharyatmakam karma. Paricharyatmakam karma. Service-oriented action. Here when Krishna talks of service, in Varna Dharma when we say service, it is physical service, bodily service. Duties and responsibilities, manual work. A Shudra is an individual contributor. Contributes individually, it's an individual contributor. Who will be a fit? Answer is very clear. What will be the answer? TRS. Guna Shudra. Where Tamas is dominant. Therefore, one is not inclined intellectually. One does not have the knowledge of reality. And it is backed by Rajas. Since it is backed by Rajas, there is action. The job of a Shudra requires a lot of action as well. Because Tamas alone makes one very lazy. But when there is enough Rajas, a lot of physical work is required. So all manual work. So TRS. So when we look holistically at those 4 classifications, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, a Brahmana necessarily deals with ideas, principles, concepts. A Kshatriya necessarily deals with people. Now we need to look at here what is the central thrust, what is the key focus. Obviously all deal with everything, but what is the focus? A Kshatriya is dealing with people, leading people, protecting people. A Vaishya deals with people and also animals. Shudra deals with only things. Shudra cannot deal with people. Which things means machinery, various tools. Comfortable dealing with tools, but not comfortable dealing with people. So you see, the classification also takes into account what is the focus in terms of the engagement with the outer world. Another way to look at is Brahmanas are dedicated to education. They can sacrifice everything for knowledge. Their heart blooms with knowledge and not because of power, money or position. We also need to ask, what is that stimulant for any duty, for any occupation? What brings us that stimulation, that excitement? All of us have our own sources for excitement and stimulus. One may just read a book and just get excited. For another, reading a book can be the most boring thing in the world. The stimulant, the source of excitement could be so very different. Somebody, a Kshatriya finds stimulation in doing adventurous things, whereas a Brahmana would possibly not venture out. The Brahmana is so very content and is satisfied and very, very happy learning something, discovering something. A aha moment comes and the Brahmana is jumping. A Kshatriya standing there is thinking, what is this madness? The stimulant, the source is so very different. A Kshatriya has a passion to protect, to give shelter to others, and can sacrifice anything, including life, happily for the sake of protecting others, for the sake of sheltering others. Now in the Ramayana, we see innumerable examples of Kshatriya dharma demonstrated by various people, including Rama. Vaishya dharma, Vaishya, supplier of basic needs. Anything in the society, all the needs need to be supplied. Dedicates life making wealth. Wealth is what makes a Vaishya happy. So I think now it's very, very clear for all of us what jobs, what we are. Shudra is inclined to submission to authority very easily. Not a people's person. Happy to serve others for fulfillment of one's needs. Comfortable with physical work. No mental work whatsoever. So we see a very clear classification of the various vocations. At a broad level, now we can see any work, any duty can easily be related to any of these four. And we see how it is highly relevant even today. Now, why Varna Dharma? The whole purpose of Varna Dharma is by practicing one's Varna, one needs to spiritually evolve. That's the process. Self-realization is the process. Because the whole process of Karma Yoga is transforming karma into Kainkarya. Transforming work, liberating work, binding work to liberating work. So, when we look at Krishna's framework, some of us possibly can easily relate to it. Some of us may need to go back and revisit a discussion around the various components in what goes into making an action. Any action has several components: jnana, buddhi, dhriti, karma, karta. Every action, there is knowledge component, there is a buddhi, intelligence component, which essentially is what discriminates. There is a dhriti, determination, which essentially brings order to desires. Jnana shapes our desires and goals. And there is karta, the doer, and there is a karma. Now we looked at karma base and we looked at classification of karma, the occupation. Brahmana karma, Vaishya karma, Kshatriya karma, Shudra karma. Now we looked at how this karma, this occupation needs to be aligned with one's swabhava. Depending on one's swabhava, depending on the combination of sattva, rajas and tamas, one's jnana, knowledge, one's dhriti, one's buddhi are all shaped by the guna. If rajas is dominant, buddhi will be rajasic in nature, dhriti will be rajasic in nature, jnana will be rajasic in nature, and so on. So therefore, a karta, the one who is doing the actions, the Atman, the indwelling Atman, is always operating at the level of what we can call his self-image. That's our identity. We all have our identities. All of us, when we ask this question, who are you? None of us will say, I am the Atman. Pleased to meet you. Even after 18 chapters of the Gita, we will not say that. We have our own identity. What is this identity based on? The identity is based on our swabhava and our karma that we do. We immediately take a visiting card. We immediately say we are so and so, or we say we come from this family. We relate it to so and so. All this is our self-image. So the actions, that the karma that we do has to, first step should be aligned with our self-image, which is our swabhava, product of our swabhava. That alignment has to happen. the process of self-realization is our self-image should eventually be equal to our self. This is realization. I should identify myself that I am not just this body, I am more than this body, I am this Atman. Now, that's a process. For that process, that spiritual evolution to happen, I need to necessarily align my work that I do with my swabhava to begin with. Going back, we said two things: material contribution and spiritual evolution. Unless I align my swabhava with the karma that I do, I cannot materially contribute. And I also will be always in a state of distress, discomfort all the time, fighting and struggling with innumerable challenges. Step one is to bring about an alignment between my self-image and the work that I do, karma. Karma and the karta self-image has to be aligned in the process. So going back here, if you see, the process of self-realization, self-image becoming the self, that can only happen. Step one, aligning self-image, my swabhava, with the karma that I do. Once I do that alignment, then I look at my buddhi, my dhriti, my jnanam, and I say, how can I now cultivate sattva? How can I acquire more sattvika jnana? How can I make my dhriti more sattvic in nature? How can I make my buddhi more sattvic in nature? Start cultivating sattva guna. As my buddhi, my dhriti, my jnana becomes more sattvic in nature, I slowly start becoming a guna brahmana. I can be doing the karma of a brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya or shudra. At the level of karma, I can continue to do any of these based on this classification, but in the journey, I slowly, by cultivating sattva, I start becoming a guna brahmana. My goal is to become a guna brahmana. When I become a guna brahmana, that's when my self-image and my self will merge, because sattva will reveal my true identity. The more clarity that happens in my mind will start revealing my own nature. And when I become sattvic, which is SRT, Guna Brahmana, there will still be a Rajas and Tamas left. But when I become predominantly sattvic, a Guna Brahmana, then I start operating based on the awareness of who I actually am. And that is a state of where you can say karma and dharma are coming together. And the purpose of life being, to do material contribution and spiritual evolution will be fulfilled. Now, can we conclude here? Not really. Picture abhi kafi baki hai. So therefore, we will continue the discussion into next week, because Krishna will conclude this whole topic of Varna Dharma by talking about Swadharma and Paradharma, and how to reach that state of self-realization through the practice of Karma Yoga. With that, we will conclude the topic of Varna Dharma in the context of practicing Karma Yoga. After that, Krishna then takes up the principles of Jnana and Bhakti in the remaining of 18th chapter. Until then, we will continue to reflect on the significance of these four classifications, and as we discussed last week, start analyzing where we fit in the scheme of things. It may seem that we are here, we are there, here and there, but we need to see predominantly where do we operate. Once we identify that, then our roadmap, we need to know where to start. We know where to go. Guna Brahmana is where we need to go, all of us. At least that's what I'm assuming, all of us here. The roadmap to Guna Brahmana becomes clear only when we know where to start. If you do not know where to start, then we will end up charting a completely different a path altogether. So let us continue to reflect on this, and with Krishna Kripa, we will conclude the Varna Dharma and then move on with the 18th chapter. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.